That's the end of the episode?
It's the end of the episode.
Jeez, we're starting to get into the long fight scene. Or the long arcs.
This is the intro song to the podcast King of the What Now. Join us as we go on a journey, going to talk about pirates, battle and adventure. We think we're pretty funny. We hope you will too. Luffy, he's gotta be the king of something. We weren't really listening. Sorry about that. Hopefully he'll achieve his dreams. Yeah.
Hello, fellow adventurers of the Grand Line. I'm Joel, your captain, I think? And with me, as always, is my first mate, Curtis.
Yeah, I'm your first mate. I'm chained to the mast.
Well, so long as you can protect me from enemy first mates. I think that's how it works in the One Piece rules, is your first in command takes on their first in command, and your captain takes on their captain. So
I can beat anybody while chained to a mast.
it only makes him stronger. All right, so we just finished episode 6 of One Piece, which is entitled... Oh no, I closed the document. Desperate Situation. That's actually the name of the episode is Oh no, I closed the document. The person who was in charge of titling the episodes officially, somehow it got into production and then they couldn't turn it back. No, it's episode 6, Desperate Situation, Luffy versus beasttamer Mohji, which, as Curtis pointed out, is awfully close to the word mochi, which is a type of sweet in Japan, I believe.
Yeah, it's like a... Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, his name is Mohji, M-O-H-J-I, which is actually pretty close to an emoji as well. What emoji would you give Mohji the Beast Tamer?
He can have... Isn't there like a cat one? Let's give him the cat one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll give him the cat one. For reasons that... Well, I would say we'll discuss later, but he's called the Beast Tamer, so I think our listeners will be able to determine why we might give him the cat emoticon. All right, Curtis, you know what it's time for. It's time to summarize that episode.
All right. There were cannon blasts, there were beasts, and there were dogs, and there were fights, and then it ended.
Wow, that's your most distinct summary yet. I don't know what I was expecting, considering your particular brand of humor and the fact that I keep telling you that you're the wrong length every single time.
Do you want a slightly more detailed version, Joel?
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, so the cannon went off. Mm-hmm. That's where we ended the last episode. We started there. Buggy survived. Don't know how. They didn't explain it. Okay, whatever. It's anime. Zoro carries Luffy out on his back. And I should note, Luffy is still in a very heavy cage.
Yes.
And that's pointed out because he's still injured from the fight with Buggy earlier.
Yep.
Nami's like, these people are weird. They're not like pirates I've seen before. And then they go down into the town. In the town, there's a small dog who has a tragic backstory about an owner who died of an illness and left the dog there when he was going to the hospital to guard the shop, and the dog's been valiantly guarding the shop ever since. Nami brings a cage, the dog eats it.
She puts it on the ground, and the dog is just like, oh.
There's a bit of animal abuse while Luffy expresses anger at the dog for eating the key, but it's okay, they make up later. And then the Beastmaster shows up, Mohji the Beastmaster, and on the back of a giant lion.
How giant?
It's like 4 people tall.
Yeah, it's like it's
6
almost
people long.
It's almost building size, and you get a scene of the paw next to Luffy, and the paw is basically the size of a regular person.
Yes.
Yeah.
It breaks the cage, and Luffy gets out as a result, but he also goes flying.
Yeah.
Then the dog tries to fight the lion because the lion's trying to get into the pet shop that the dog is guarding.
Right, and the dog's name is like Chou. Like, they are pronouncing it slightly differently, but it's basically the sound a train makes.
Yes. And just like a train, that dog keeps on trucking along. I guess trains
trucks. Yeah, absolutely. And trucks, they're always training for the next big truck triathlon, as we all know.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so yeah, the dog keeps fighting the lion. And obviously he doesn't beat the lion because the lion is like 1,000 times the size of the dog.
Yeah, it's not a big dog. It's a small, like, probably corgi-sized animal.
Then Luffy comes back and he beats up the lion.
Handily.
Yes, by using an attack he calls a Gum Gum Hammer.
Yep.
That freaks out the Beast Tamer because this is apparently the second person he's ever seen with a devil fruit power, and he runs away.
He doesn't run away. He tries to beg for forgiveness.
Oh,
and Luffy's
that's right.
Come here, and just slams him into the ground. The reason why I want to correct you on that is because they mentioned throughout this episode that the pet shop is the dog's treasure. They use the word treasure a couple of times. Pretty clearly, they use that phrase. And then when Luffy walks up and Mohji sets fire to the pet shop when he's done with it, because I guess that's what typical pirates do. And Luffy sits there and he's watching the dog and he's watching the fire, and the dog is howling, and Luffy's like, okay, 1 second, hold my things, I'll be right back. And then when he comes back, it's the connection
right.
about the treasure. Luffy didn't really care about fighting the lion at first until he realized that someone's treasure was on the line, and then he was like, okay, you know what? Let's do this.
Yeah, and then he beats up the lion and the guy, and then he comes back, and the only thing he has is he has a box of pet food that he gives to the dog, because it's the only thing that's left to the shop. And then I'll get into the conversations with Nami later, because that's the whole train I want to talk about.
Sure.
But the mayor shows up. I guess he showed up earlier when he was doing the animal abuse, I think. The mayor's like, I've had enough of this Buggy. I'm going to go take Buggy on.
Why is it important that he fights Buggy?
Because the town is his treasure.
Treasure is one of those words that's just, if you're playing One Piece bingo, look for the word treasure. Dream is very similar because they're basically in the sense of a metaphorical treasure that also is usually connected to one's dream. And then, yeah, those are the two big ones.
Yeah, so then Luffy talks him into going to face Buggy because he needs a little bit of inspiration to do it. And then all of them end up walking over there to go face Buggy, and that's where it ends. Oh, because Buggy is about to choke out the mayor who went ahead of them, and then Luffy stops him and then says, I'm going to kick your ass, and then that's where it ends.
Oh, yeah, very serious. Luffy has already had a couple of fights, but I think this might be the most serious we've seen him so far in the series.
So the Nami thing, during the whole episode, she goes back and forth between trying to decide if Zoro and Luffy are a different type of pirate than she's seen before,
yes,
and her normal feelings about pirates, which is, I don't like pirates.
Yes.
And I think they should all die, right? Because at one point she explicitly says, I should kill you. I wish you had died in that fight to Luffy. But at the end of the episode, so Luffy's been trying to get her on the crew as a navigator, and she keeps saying no. Well, I guess she goes back and forth because she said yes once.
She said she would team up with him last episode because she thought that was the easiest way to get back into Buggy's good graces.
Yeah.
I don't think she's ever seriously looked at him and said yes. Every time he's asked seriously and she's given a serious answer, it's been no. Yeah. Absolutely not.
No, I think that's right. But then she ends up going with them to face Buggy because she said they have a common goal, right?
Right.
Which I think because she also doesn't like Buggy because he's a pirate. And so they have a common goal of taking out Buggy. Also, Buggy is starting to blow up the town, so that he's more of an imminent threat. So
exactly. There's a call to action, and they decide to respond to that kind of immediately. Fantastic. I will say, if you haven't seen this episode in a little while, this is by far the most emotional episode so far. I mean, we're 6 episodes in, but the flashback with the dog and his owner is very effective. The one with Luffy and Shanks was pretty good in a lot of ways. It set up a lot of character growth, but it didn't tug at the heartstrings. And we've never gotten actual Zoro's real flashback. We've seen snippets of it, but never any dialogue or any more than about 5 seconds at a time. But this one, you see this wonderful bond between a man and his dog, and then you see the dog trying to protect his treasure and he couldn't. And so that is legitimately one of my favorite moments in all of One Piece.
The dog thing reminds me of the dog from Futurama.
Oh, so absolutely.
For any listeners who don't watch Futurama, or I guess didn't watch Futurama since it's not on anymore, there's an episode with a whole little montage about his dog from the past. Go watch it. It's a good episode. It'll make you cry.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee that almost anyone who's watching this has seen that episode. It's one of the most, everyone makes references to that episode, and Futurama was a big hit. I think it's most likely. If you haven't, though, absolutely. It's called Jurassic Bark, I believe, is the name of the episode.
I believe you.
Okay. One of us has a better track record for remembering things than the other one.
Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so who is the MVP in this episode? Keeping in mind that there's only one correct answer.
It's the dog.
Of course it's the dog, yes. Look, I'm looking through the list of questions that I can ask every episode, and I just okay, let's just get an emphatic, across the board, no one could possibly believe it was anyone but the dog in the episode. The mayor's pretty cool. He's the first. I think you might be able to agree with me that Luffy and Zoro don't feel human quite. They feel superhuman in terms of, like, their endurance and their strength, and they're willing to push through the pain.
Yeah, I mean, Zoro got blown up by a cannon in this episode and just kind of stands up out of the rubble of the building.
Yep.
It's like, man, why'd you guys wake me up from my nap?
When we were watching it together, I was commenting to you, I don't know who is actually technically the bigger badass. Because Zoro does a lot of stuff that's really cool, like lifting the stone cage. I don't know if Luffy's necessarily strong enough to do that. So in terms of like blow for blow, feat by feat, I think Zoro is better at it because Luffy has a lot of goofy moments. Zoro usually is very serious, but Luffy has some pretty good ones too. Like when he grabbed the line and just one hit KO'd it.
But he still hasn't died for our sins, so Zoro's got one up on him.
I suppose that's true.
He will always be my metal Jesus.
Yeah, let's bring that back in like 60 episodes and let's see if people still remember who Metal Jesus is.
I'm just saying, like, I don't think there'll ever be another moment where he's on a crucifix, but I will always remember.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so the episode ended with the showdown. Luffy is now meeting Buggy. They're both now out of their cage. Well, Luffy is out of his cage, so he's actually capable of fighting. With that in mind, what do you think the next episode will be about? We know it's going to be the fight, but what complications do you foresee, or do you think it's just going to be another...
Well, they still have to deal with... So, Zoro isn't going to be much use in the fight, at least not against Buggy. Maybe against other members of Buggy's crew, but we've already established that swords don't do anything against him, right?
Yep. Nami has a stick. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, but I think you're going to run into the same issue. I mean, just hurting him in general is going to be hard. I think I guess the stick might work. Anything like blunt force trauma is probably going to work better than, stabbing and slashing. I'm not sure. I guess I know a little bit about how Luffy uses his powers, right? But in terms of stuff in recent memory that I know well, I mean, he just does a lot of punching in that.
Okay.
And I mean, they just keep punching him.
Now, at the end of the episode... I think we were talking about this last episode, and sometimes I ask you leading questions that I know the answer to. Last one I had a legitimate, like, what do you think the answer to this is? I asked, when Buggy separates, do you think he can feel the parts that come apart? In this episode, the mayor was being choked out by Buggy's hand, his favorite technique to use, and Luffy grabs it, and you see Buggy, like, exclaiming in pain, and he's, like, clutching his still attached wrist, his forearm, I guess.
I guess I missed that.
So they're still connected. So do you think he's immune to punches? I think that physical pain still works on him.
Oh, no, I don't think he's... No, I didn't say he was immune to punches. I just think that... I mean, is he just going to punch him until he wins?
Have you ever seen a shonen anime before?
That's a good point.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is I wonder if they'll be able to... Well, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm speculating when I know what happens, but consider the fact that if Nami uses her stick, that's like 3 things that Buggy's being punched by, he's getting hit by 2 fists of Luffy and a stick. I don't know. It should be very interesting. I hope that the next episode surprises and delights you because of unforeseen folds in the river. I don't think that's the correct term.
No, I don't think rivers fold, Joel.
They bend, but they don't fold.
Yes, they definitely bend.
Okay. One joke that I had in my mind that I thought I would ask every episode, and again I realized it would run its course pretty quickly. Do you think that the dog will be hot in 400 episodes? Would you believe me if I told you that?
I'm not sure how I feel about that question, Joel.
Okay.
My answer is going to imply some very serious things about me in my personal life.
Well, unless you say no, I guess then I could turn on you and say, what's wrong with you? You don't find this beautiful, good boy beautiful.
I'm just going to say no.
Okay, you don't believe that, okay, in 400 episodes. Also, it's hard to gauge time in the One Piece world. I would say that, for each individual arc, how long are they on an island? It's hard to tell. Axehand Morgan, that seemed to be like a one-day thing. Seemed like they came in the morning, they beat him up, and then they left. I don't think they spent the night on the island.
Oh, did they not? I thought they stayed overnight once.
Maybe, but my point is that each island probably only, so far, the one island that they've been on has been a pretty short stay.
Yeah.
And this buggy fight has been taking place over the course of like an hour, maybe 2 hours, it seems like. So when I say, do you think in 400 episodes this character will be hot? Well, how much actual time will pass? By the time we get to episode 400, will it be 2 months after episode 1, or will it be like 40 years. And if it's 40 years, the pupper's probably not going to make it, you know? That's a little long for a furry companion to last.
That's sad.
I mean, everything eventually passes. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Oh. Not me, though.
No, you'll live forever. You have the power of Metal Jesus to keep you on until salvation.
That's what they taught me in the Church of One Piece.
The Church of One Piece. Fantastic. Fantastic. Something else, too, that kind of makes a little bit of sense, since we know that Buggy's key phrase is flashy, when the mayor says, "This town is my treasure," Buggy's like, "Are you stupid? The only thing that's treasure is the sparkly bits, the gold and the silver and the jewels or whatever." So he's very much into the outward appearances.
Yeah.
So.
No, that makes sense. Though, again, that's funny for somebody who doesn't want people to pay attention to his large red nose.
His very noticeable red nose. Absolutely. I think that's it. Do you think that this episode was filler? This Tale of the Dog? Okay.
No. Well, actually, what important stuff happened in this? This could be mostly filler if you think about it.
Sure.
I mean, it's a whole story about a dog that we're probably never going to see again. And but he gets out of the cage and he talks to the mayor. No, I don't think it's filler.
No, I can confirm that this is not filler. It would, as we've discussed before, we're a little too early into the series for it to make sense for there to be filler. I do think there was one scene, I can't remember which one it was, where it seemed like it was just kind of hanging there for a moment to like make the moment more dramatic. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, this is too long, right? And so I do think that maybe they padded out certain parts of the episode, but overall, Mohji is a canon character, the mayor is a canon character, the dog, all that good stuff. This is a bit of a shorter episode. Unfortunately, when we get into these kind of fight scene episodes, arcs are typically broken down into kind of like the setup and then the fight, and we're now in the fight part of the Buggy arc because these early arcs are very short. So unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot to talk about. Do you think there was anything in this episode that was foreshadowed that you think would be important later in any way? Do you think Luffy will fight harder to protect all dog food stores in the future?
No, but the treasure thing might come back.
Okay.
I mean, it's obvious that he cares about what other people care about, and like he has strong feelings about people standing up to protect things that are important to them.
Okay.
So I guess it's not foreshadowing; it's more character development, or not even character development.
It's more like a theme, I would say.
Yeah,
probably.
It's developing the theme. So I guess it's not foreshadowing. Do want to mention? So there was a part when Luffy did the gum hammer.
Yeah.
And he twists his arms in a spiral to do it. I thought that was kind of cool because he's like making an elastic cord with his arms.
Yeah. As we've established, I watch a lot of shonen, and then you some, but not as much. And I think that there's a very common trope, and I want to say Goku from Dragon Ball Z might have been like the first person to do it, and everyone's copying off of him. Maybe there was an earlier example, but you get a lot of shonen protagonists who are carefree, A, B, very kind of simple-minded, kind of stupid, but then C, very good at battle, and like that's when like their genius shows up, and like they might not be able to figure out how to buy oranges at the grocery store. They're too stupid for that, but they will be able to figure out that this character's weakness is their left ear and exploit the crap out of that.
Yeah.
So Luffy's very much so like that. Now, in terms of the treasure being important and Luffy believing in people's treasure, do you think that he would ever... So he cares about the dog's treasure because the dog has a very sympathetic backstory, and it's obvious that the dog is a good... Not person exactly, but a good thing. The mayor seems to be a good, kind-hearted person. But do you think that Luffy would ever exploit what he knows his enemy's treasures would be in order to get the upper hand?
I don't know if he'd exploit it. I mean, well, okay, it depends. So I could see him actually helping someone set up as a villain because of their treasure, right?
Okay.
Like respecting that part of it and helping them out if the circumstances are right. If they're in direct opposition to each other, no, I don't think. I mean, obviously he's not going to stand up for him, but I'm not sure if he'd ever exploit that. I think his feelings on that would be too strong.
I agree. I think that to Luffy, he's a little bit of a kind of a libertarian in a certain aspect. Like, everyone has the right to protect their own dreams, but if your dream interferes with my dream, we're going to punch each other, and unless you can prove that I shouldn't keep pursuing my thing, then I'll just keep doing it, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but like he wouldn't. I think if he's in a fight and he's trying to beat somebody, and he knows this person's dream is to protect the shop or something, right? He's not going to go out of his way to blow up that shop. That would not be what's the word I'm looking for?
Kosher? I mean, that's the phrase we'd use in every day.
That would not be honorable.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I think he has a strong sense of honor, even if he doesn't phrase it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's some interesting things I'd love to talk to you about that we'll get to further down the line, but I think that this is planting some interesting seeds about in the One Piece world. It seems like almost every main character has a dream, and people's relative strength seems to be tied to how much they're willing to fight for what they believe in. Mm-hmm. I believe that Nami is starting to look at Luffy and Zoro being like, are these guys for real? And partially it's the fact that they seem to be kind of carefree and weird. But I also think that it's the fact that, like, there was a moment where it showed her seeing Luffy and the dog interact, and she kind of, like, you could see the light bulb clicking on above her head. And so that's just something interesting to keep in mind for the future. Do you think, where we are now, you have enough information to even try to speculate on what Zoro's treasure might be?
Oh, so I think it's either going to be one of his swords or three things. Either his swords.
Yes.
His bandana.
Okay.
Or his earrings.
Okay, sure.
One of those three, I think. I mean, obviously I could be wrong, but those are like the most likely.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we know very little about him. We know that he is searching for someone. We know that he had a friend when he was younger. We know he has 3 swords. We know he has earrings. We know he puts on the bandana. And that's basically it. We're going to start getting more, not exactly padding, but we get more moments between islands where it just kind of shows them on the ship hanging out. And that's where you get more development, I would say, where you learn more about their personal lives. And that's great for characterization, but if you're just here for the punches, maybe it feels a little slower. But you kind of need both, which is something that I didn't quite realize when I was younger, but I think that One Piece does that really well. I don't particularly care when I watched Naruto, for example. I didn't feel like he had a life outside of the plot. And I don't feel like the guys from Bleach, for example, really had that much camaraderie. It was just like, we're going to fight this guy together. But the shows that can do more, I feel strongly about this and my bad guys are going to exploit that or whatever. It's more interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, do you have any other further thoughts, general discussion points you want to touch upon?
Yeah, so Nami emphasizing the fact that they're pirates is interesting to me because I don't view Luffy and Zoro as a pirate crew, really.
Sure.
They're more of like an adventuring crew, right? Because, so obviously Luffy views himself as a pirate and he wants to be the king of the pirates. Zoro... One, you keep mentioning he doesn't call him captain, right? He calls him his friend.
Yes.
But also, on top of that, like, wasn't he a pirate hunter before?
Yes.
And I don't think he considers himself a pirate now. And my view of this is they're going to start, bringing in people who aren't really of pirating backgrounds to form the crew. So it's kind of like, at least in terms of getting Nami to join, it's like your goal is to get One Piece, right? Sure. It's not really a pirating thing. That's more like what do you call somebody who's going to trying to find a treasure?
Treasure seeker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like you don't need to be a pirate to do that. You're a pirate if you're out on the high seas, like, taking over ships.
Stealing,
and
sure. And I do think that you touched upon a couple of points that I think are really interesting. The first is that you said you don't feel like they do a lot of pirating, and pirating is kind of more about looting and treasure and attacking other people and doing whatever you want. And I would say that, like, Alvida and Buggy better fit that definition of pirating.
Yes.
But I also think that throughout the series, you kind of meet a bunch of groups who just say, we are pirates, and you don't see them necessarily doing stereotypically pirate things. But Oda can't show us, I mean, he could, but the series would be even longer than it already is. You can't really show all of their pirating deeds, so you just have to kind of take him at his word when he says, oh, there are pirates out there that are doing traditional pirate things.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
You also can't really show some of the more adult things, this is a show for younger audience typically, even though it has mature themes.
Yeah.
So you can't show rioting to the absolute degree that actually happened in real life.
Yeah.
The other point, though, is that as far as we know, we don't really know a lot about the One Piece at this point. And we don't really know a whole lot about Marines, and we don't know a lot about pirates. But I would say, as far as I can tell, pirates are just people that don't listen to Marine rule. It seems to be the definition we can work with right now. Mm. And in that sense, I think Luffy is a pirate insofar as he does what he wants, regardless of what rules might have previously been written.
So really, in the show up till now, I would say pirate is equal to anarchist more so, right? Like you're kind of like you have your own agenda and you don't really care, right? What the law says, you're just gonna do your thing. And because it seems to me like they don't really have a strong rule of law in this universe. Like I mean, there's the Navy, and in some places the Navy is really strong, but there's a lot of the world where they don't have that much control.
Yep, absolutely. We didn't see a single military presence in Orangetown, the city that we're currently hanging out in.
Yeah. So I'd say it's fair to say like there are whole swaths of the world that don't really have much in the way of like governance.
Yeah, and of course we can always revisit this in several episodes. I can think of some key moments in the back of my mind that would better answer your question, but I'm not just going to tell you.
Yeah.
So we'll explore as we go along, but I do agree that pirating in the show doesn't quite feel like the same pirating you'd expect from history, and then also Luffy doesn't seem to fit in the traditional pirate captain, but hey, maybe that's what makes him special. Maybe that's why we want to follow his story and not the story of Buggy or Alvida or any other pirates we might meet later.
Fair enough.
All right, folks, I think that'll be everything that we're going to talk about for today. Hopefully you guys will keep on adventuring, follow your dreams, and protect your treasure. Remember, it doesn't have to be literal treasure.
All right, folks, we've reached the end of this episode for today. It's sad to see you go, but fortunately we'll be here next week unless we get hit by a meteor. In the meantime, you can follow us on all sorts of different social media. We have Gmail, Patreon, Tumblr, all of those are King of the What Pod. So patreon.com/King of the What Pod, King of the What Pod at gmail.com, kingofthewhatpod.tumblr.com. That's all great. If you want to follow us on Twitter, that name's a little different. They restrict the length of your handles. So you can follow us on Twitter at Kotwin_pod. That's KOTWN_pod. Just take the name of the podcast and abbreviate it.
Also, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on whatever platform you're using to listen. That can be iTunes, Spotify, or whatever. Not only will this help others find the podcast, but your constructive feedback will help us improve the show as we go. We hope to grow and improve just like the Straw Hat Crew.
Thanks again for listening in. Be sure to check the feed next week for the latest episode of King of the What Now. Until then, follow your dreams and protect your treasure.
Remember, that doesn't need to be literal treasure.